Let's call this meeting of the Policy Committee to order. Hi, everyone. Thank you for all of you who are joining here in person or tuning in via YouTube. My name is Janie Lau, and I'm presiding over this meeting today in place of our chair, Ms. Susan Stern, who has an excused absence. I am joined by my fellow committee members, Dr. Andrew Babson and Ms. Lon Rosenblum. So let the record show that we have established a quorum for the meeting today. Let me introduce our other invited guests. Today, we have our superintendent, Dr. Kenneth Batchelor. We have our administrative liaison, Dr. Scott Hand. We have our solicitor, Michael Christofko. And we have our student liaison, Connie Atkinson. So with that, I will hand it over to Dr. Hand for any opening remarks.
Other than welcome back and Happy New Year, because it has been since October since this committee has met, so I hope you had a great holiday. Tonight's readings, we were just looking at second readings, and since it's been such a span of time, we wanted to only put those ones on there in case there were any other questions, though we typically don't go deep into second reads. We had a lot of time with the first reads. We wanted it just to be focused on that, and then I'll share a brief update on artificial intelligence and where we are with that as questions come up about policies surrounding artificial intelligence.
Great, thank you, Dr. Hand. Our first order of business is public comment. Do we have any public comment in person or recorded? None? Okay. Moving on to a review of the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from October? Okay. Any comments? No? So this is the first meeting of this committee since October. So it's been a while, but we did set the table, as Dr. Hand said, by reviewing all of the policies that are up for second read today. We went over them for first reads back in October. So we are well positioned despite the long hiatus. Moving on to the substantive part of the agenda. So first off, we have Policy 200, which is enrollment in district, up for a second read. And I do know that all of us were at the October meeting and probably had comments back then, but I do want to give a chance for, if anyone had any second thoughts or additional thoughts on this policy, to open it up to the committee for that. Anything? Anyone else? No?
I do not have any comments on this item.
Okay. Similarly, for Policy 218, student discipline, also up for a second read after having considered it already in October. Nope. Policy 218.1 weapons, also up for a second read. And then Policy 218.2, terroristic threats / acts, also up for a second read. No?
I'm wondering if we could maybe just, sorry. I'm wondering maybe if we could just get a brief executive summary of these policies and or any kind of, maybe get caught up on any thoughts that that might be top of mind for you, Dr. Hand, about any or all of these?
Sure. 3 of the 4 of them are based on the new requirements under Act 33, which was that omnibus bill that talked about school safety. Those are the latter 3 that are on there. The top one, Policy 200, was based upon Act 67, which had requirements specifically for disenrolling students. So we looked at that and incorporated most of that language into the administrative regulation. Again, the following 3 policies were based on Act 33, and there weren't substantive changes to a lot of those, but it prompted us to go back and take a look at a majority of that language and some of the citations that were updated based on some of the new legislation in there. And then, of course, organizing those according to our district policy sort of structure that we had.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Han. I also wanted to just note for anyone listening that, you know, per Pennsylvania School Code and Pennsylvania's Sunshine Act, or also known as the Open Meetings Act, you know, obviously, you know, as a school board, we are required to conduct our meetings in the open so that the citizenry can hear our deliberations and the rationale behind our decision-making. But it does have very narrowly tailored exceptions, and school security measures, discussion of security measures is one of those exceptions. So, you know, I just want to let people know that this is not the only time, you know, in which you will hear one of our committees or the school board as a whole discuss issues of school security, and that we do regularly confront and debate and deliberate on matters of school security during our executive sessions. And I just want to make sure that people understand we're not giving short shrift to this issue, and that we are appropriately doing it behind closed doors, because, you know, discussing some of these topics in the open might actually compromise public safety. So I do want to just let people know that we do spend a lot more time on topics such as these behind closed doors. With that, I think we're done with the second reads for all of the policies that are up for discussion. And we will move on to the AI update that Dr. Hand referenced.
Thank you, and we're open for any discussion, and certainly, Connie, from a student's perspective as well. A lot of time conversation has come up about artificial intelligence, and we'll get asked, well, what is our policy on that? And as a policy committee, we had decided about over a year ago to, rather than developing a policy specifically on artificial intelligence, rather opening up our entire policy manual and looking to see if any other policies could be revised or needed revised in light of artificial intelligence, because a lot of our policies already covered a lot of those areas. One such policy was the honor code at the high school. So we were able to open that up, work with some students, work with some teachers, and some of the teachers who were part of the original development of that as well were able to go in there and take a look. And then, of course, working with our legal counsel and our solicitor, taking a look at any other policies that we would need to bring into line. The good news is most of those policies covered everything. So what we've done internally is we started to develop some internal practices. We actually developed language that we have in each of our handbooks. So our elementary, middle school, and high school for this current school year now have language that addresses artificial intelligence directly. We also, again, have adapted the honor code, which has been instructed to our students, and that is inside of district policy. We've also developed an artificial intelligence position statement where we talk about things such as teaching and learning and the ethics of artificial intelligence. And for anybody in the public who's curious, they can find all of this information on our district website, rtsd.org/AI. We made it nice and easy where they can find those. We have had a series of professional development working with our teachers, because that's the first point of entry, but we've also had some opportunities to work with our middle school and high school students, giving them general introductions to AI, but also the teachers in their classrooms have been working with them. Teachers have also taken some time to develop language that they've included into their syllabus so they can talk to their students about it and what their expectations are within the classroom, but also some model language on what an activity, assignment, or assessment might look like. Because on one particular activity, using AI might be okay, on another one, not so good. You need to not do that. So developing that language so that the students know the expectations up front. We've published a lot of those practices on our district website. Given that we have published those there, one of the things that we'd like to do administratively is we'd actually like to move a lot of that language into an administrative regulation. So the thought would be to have that as an administrative regulation attached to policy 815, which is our acceptable use policy, which helps actually codify some of these practices that we've established so that there is one point and source of information for both students and teachers to go to be able to look at. One such area is looking at our AI usage scale. So there's a scale, it's actually in its second iteration that has some research backing to that, where basically it aligns levels of usage 1 through 5, And so provide some granularity that AI is not just binary, yes, you can use it, or no, you can't use it. There's different ways and you can use it, say for idea generation, but not writing your entire paper. And that would fall somewhere in the middle, say out of 3. But defining some of that language also, so when our teachers are giving activities and assignments, they can say, this is an AI level 3. Having maybe some posters in there in the classroom so people have that reference point. But again, consistency in that language. We thought it was really good that our departments at the secondary level were able to get together and have some consistency, but looking at consistency from a building or district level as well, that we're all using the same language. And as these kids are coming through our system, they're hearing a lot of that same conversation. So what we'd like to do is begin to develop that. And we'll have other areas as well, looking at areas of copyright and responsible use, again, referencing the policy that we've already adapted with the honor code, looking at areas of student data privacy, so we'll address that directly in the administrative regulation, that you're not just dumping student data into the AI, with FERPA and COPA and SIPA, those all acronyms that are about protecting student data privacy. Those will be addressed in there as well. What we'd like to do is take a draft of that. At the end of this month, on January 29th, we actually have a professional development with all of our teachers K-12, where we're going to be focused on digital wellness. The secondary level is going to look at artificial intelligence, and we'd like to run this administrative regulation past them and get some teacher feedback before we bring it to this committee to look at. Though while this committee doesn't look at administrative regulations per se, we've been including them in there, so it's public, it's transparent, other people can see that, and I'd like to bring that to this committee in February, would be the goal, March at the latest, but we'd like to have some teacher voice in that as well during that January 29th, and since I have the microphone and platform, after that we are bringing in a guest speaker, author and speaker Devora Heitner, to talk about digital wellness with our teachers. Devora will be joining us on the 29th to work with our teachers, and then during the day on January 30th to work with our 4th and 5th grade students, as well as we have a community event, and you'll start to see some of the promotion come from our communications department to talk to the community about digital wellness and screen time and what that looks like at home. So I'd invite the community to be able to join Devora for that community conversation on the 30th. So back to artificial intelligence, again, we'll have some time on the 29th that we're working with teachers, and we'd like them to review that, again, bringing in sort of coalescing the practices that we've established into one spot. We thought that would be a great place to be able to do that. So as you have other thoughts in there if on artificial intelligence and you want to share those with myself as we're building those out, please feel free to do that. And again, I'd like to be able to share that with this committee in February, if not March at the latest.
Great, thank you. And I know the curriculum committee also discussed this briefly, right, last year, at the end of last year. So, but it's helpful to always hear it again because it's here to stay. And I think, you know, as you point out, we're going to continue to, you know, enhance and develop our own, you know, dealings with AI, you know, within our school district. So very helpful update. I guess I'd love to open it up to my other committee members for their thoughts, and then also to Dr. Batchelor and to our student representative in case they had their thoughts as well. But first, Ms. Rosenblum.
Yeah, thank you for really trying to stay on top of this, because as it moves so quickly, it's really hard to stay at pace with it. I think the one really important thing that I'm hearing from parents is and maybe I can't speak to the majority of them, but sometimes they're a little fearful of AI. So I think that this is really important to get them more familiarized with it, because it is here and it's here to stay. Embrace it and use it in a productive way, or learn how to use it in a productive way. So the professional development is going to be really important. Speaking to the students and the community is going to be important. And I would be interested in hearing, what's the date again that you said that, is it Devora?
The evening session is on the 30th.
Is that January 30th?
January 30th, yes.
Okay.
Thursday, January 30th.
Okay. And then also, I think, you know, as you've clarified over and over, the language is going to be really important, and how you use it, because, you know, my kids are in college now, and they're allowed to use it, but in certain areas and in certain ways. And the professors know when you're using AI now. How much you use AI is important, and how much of the language you use is important. When we were growing up, we couldn't copy anything from the encyclopedias or the dictionaries if they even exist anymore, right? So this is going to be completely new to them, and I think, making them feel comfortable with it and not fearful of it, I think it's going to be really important. Thank you for staying on top of that.
Sure. Yeah, my son asked me what an encyclopedia was the other day. I'm like, well, Wikipedia, that pedia part, that's from encyclopedia. But yeah, no, I mean, technology is just around artificial intelligence is changing by the minute. And what I like about your approach, and just generally speaking, looking at the website, there's a couple different sections on AI. There's a statement, and there's a section under technology and innovation. It gives a nice breakdown. I appreciate it. But just your overall, I think, approach is very helpful because it's flexible. You have the skeleton of some core ideas, but you're staying ahead of it because it is evolving so rapidly. And, I don't know about you guys, but I read something new about AI almost every day if it's out there. And it's moving by leaps and bounds. And I think that the conversation could be substantively different even 3 years from now, where we're talking, the terminology might be completely different. We might not even be talking about generative AI, we might be talking about some other kind of AI. So the capacities, how it affects teaching and learning, is there a different division of labor or different roles that AI will create? I mean, there's just a number of different issues. So I think getting on top of this, I think we had this conversation in the curriculum meeting. It seems early, but to some other people, it's like the horse has been out of the barn for a very long time. But I think overall, it's still fairly early days, and I think it's great that we're establishing a foundation. So just those general comments. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I really like the approach that we seem to have taken because, the technology is evolving very rapidly, and I think if we were to take a rules-driven approach, it would be outdated or obsolete, by next year. Rather, we've taken a principles-based approach, right? So, and the principles of like transparency and attribution, and and like those are timeless, and those you can interpret, right, even as the technology matures and develops, and hopefully it'll help teachers and students kind of, when they're guided by principles, they can kind of interpret and apply it to whatever new situation they find themselves in. And what I found really helpful was that scale that you referenced, right, 1 to 5, and how descriptive it was in terms of the different levels of usage. I wonder if it, if that scale gets refined and settled, if it might not be helpful to just put that in a poster, right? And really put it everywhere in the school just to just have a visual reminder. Because I think a lot of times we're so immersed in it now that we don't even realize we're engaged in the use of AI. And I think just that constant visual reminder would be, hopefully, I don't know if Connie would agree, it would be helpful for students as they go about their daily homework or projects or assignments, to have that reminder to, just kind of check themselves and be like, okay, am I using AI appropriately for my next assignment? So, Dr. Batchelor, Connie?
Yeah, I totally agree with the scale. I think it's a really beneficial idea. And also, I've definitely heard some debate on whether or not the terms used in the honor code, like lying and stealing, apply to AI. And so I think that updating that language is going to be ultimately the most beneficial thing in this update, because I think that just, like making it explicit and making it like which way morally is right will be really helpful to students. So I agree. Thank you.
And agree with all the comments so far about our approach. So I want to thank Dr. Hand and also our teaching and learning department for the approach that we've been taking. And I also like the balance. We have a speaker coming about digital wellness, and that's all part of this as well. And we've been hearing from our parents at the elementary level that, they don't want to see some of the devices home that we are sending home. So, I give again credit to Dr. Hand in teaching and learning that, coming out of COVID, when everyone had a device, we adjusted a couple years ago and we stopped sending those devices K-2. And then we had the third grade parents come to us and say, why does our third grader have to take a device home every day? We need to have a lot of discussions too about this digital wellness and what does it look like K-5 and what does it look like in middle school and what does it look like in high school, and it's different at each level, and I think the teaching and the learning is going to be different at each level, and we want to make sure that why are we holding on? It's a whole nother conversation, not really an AI discussion, but the conversation about why are we holding on to these devices one-to-one at the elementary level. And when we've started to have these conversations in the last couple of months, part of the conversation has been, well, snow days. We use them for snow days. Well, do we need to use them for snow days anymore? Can we have a snow day where the kids are just reading instead of, at the elementary level at least, or they're doing what we call these evergreen lessons instead of being on technology? So I think we have a lot of conversations that we want to continue to have as a district about, this approach that we have with AI and technology, I think is a smart approach, but also with this digital wellness to talk about, maybe we don't need devices one-to-one K-5 anymore, and start having those conversations with our teachers and have conversations about even, and just as a reminder for anyone listening, we changed a lot with what we do with snow days now. The state changed 2 years ago and said you can choose days or hours, and that was a big change for us that we could choose one or the other. And we now choose hours. We count the minutes. We have plenty of minutes at the elementary level that we teach. We're a little tight at the high school level, unfortunately, with time. But we can have more traditional snow days at the elementary level. Maybe we're looking at a future where, there's the snow day looks one way at the elementary level, and it looks different at the high school. We did that in November with Election Day. That was something new to our calendar. And again, I give the board a lot of credit and the community and our teachers, where our high school kids were learning virtually, so the day would count, and our elementary kids were off, which they've traditionally been off. And then we had professional development for our teachers. We could do that for snow days, maybe, moving forward into the future. So these are things we need to talk about, and we also have decided as a community, 2 years ago, as we started creating calendars 2 years in advance, and I'm sorry I'm getting on tangents, but you asked me to speak, this is what happens. We're creating these calendars 2 years in advance, and the calendar committee 2 years ago said the most important thing, and this was a stakeholder group of parents, teachers, administrators, board members, students. We asked them to rate what was most important. We thought was going to be things like starting, make sure we always start after Labor Day was going to be the most important thing, or keep spring break a week. These were all options. The thing that ranked the highest for everybody in the committee that was the most important was knowing the end date of the year and not letting that change, and ending the second week of June too. Nobody likes when we go into the third week, and so the last couple of years we've picked our end date and we're not making up days because of this minutes and hours change. So there's a lot for us to talk about with options that have kind of opened us up to different things and doing things different way that really plays into this whole digital wellness and also plays into what technology advantages we can have and how we want to use that. So I think it's all very exciting, and I'm glad we're still having the conversation, but I see us, as we dive into AI, maybe going in less technology in other places in the district, and especially as we look at our elementary program, we may be using less moving forward.
Great, thank you. I don't think those were tangents at all. I think it's all interrelated. So those were all very, actually, very important topics that we will address, as you said. So I think that's it, unless there's additional discussion on this topic. I don't see anyone in the room for any live comments. So with that, I will accept any motions to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. We are adjourned.